Welcome to Save Our Sleep. Tizzie and the Save Our Sleep team believe it's every child's right to receive comfort, a parent's right to demonstrate love, and everyone's right to a full night of sleep. This podcast is not a medical or scientific volume, but a collection of tried and tested solutions and tips based on my many years of experience with babies and young children. Its main purpose is to help parents understand and avoid sleep problems in young babies and toddlers.
We'd like to recognise the Wadawurrung people who are the traditional owners of this region, which Tizzie and myself live and are recording today's podcast on. We acknowledge and respect that they have taken care of this land and water and raised children in this nation for over an extraordinary 70,000 years. The Save Our Sleep podcast is dedicated to helping you prevent and solve sleep problems while having some fun along the way. We endeavour to discuss all things family related, starting from pre-conception all the way through to an adult child leaving home and beyond. Some topics may be triggering. If you find this is the case, please reach out to your or your child's health nurse or general practitioner.
You are talking with Tizzie Hall, author of the best-selling series Save Our Sleep, and Kylie Szabo, mum of 3 and sleep consultant and great expert in the Save Our Sleep support group. We are going to talk about starting solids today. So Zoe and I were working through the book and I realised that we missed the whole section on starting solids. But before we get started, how's your week been?
Good, aside from my car being frozen like an icicle because it's been so cold in the morning.
Oh, I know. I've been expecting it to snow.
Well, I feel like it has at my house. Like my lawn's been white. My car has, is covered in ice that we're having to scrape it off. Like I was pouring the water on it and it would just freeze again.
Do you pour cold water, hot water?
Cold water, because I've heard the hot water smashes.
You're supposed to put like kind of lukewarm. I don't know. There's all sorts of different. I remember when we were kids, it did. Like you got frost because we were in Ireland and you got snow. And I remember people having issues with windscreens breaking and so on. The windscreens are probably safer now, but probably smash more or something. Who knows? Anyway, I think I've had a pretty normal week. Kids are back at school and they're exhausted.
Yeah.
And kids are back at school and exhausted and I don't know. What's just life.
Boring life, yep.
Just, I don't even know what I don't. We've been making rainbow blankets, more rainbow
Dying
blankets.
everywhere.
Anyway, let's move on to starting solids because Zoe and I worked through the book, but we didn't talk actually about starting solids as such, and I don't really know why. And we go back, the first couple of episodes we talked about, mum guilt and a few other things, and we'll just dip backwards and forwards. But today's topic is going to be starting solids. So
it's an exciting time starting solids. It's a bit nerve-wracking too because you don't know how they're going to react. I
often refer to my friend Claire at home who had her first baby at our age. I think we're about 48. She's just had her first baby. And she was telling me, how full her day was and how busy this is and how busy that is. And if anyone is watching on YouTube, can you see me doing my steps? I've realised that I've missed my steps for the arm. So I'm like busily doing my steps. I've done them now with my arm. My Friday children think it's really funny. They're obsessed with me going, oh no, I forgot to do my steps. Boom, 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 boom. Anyway, back to starting solids. So my friend at home in Ireland, she kept saying how busy she was and how she's always doing this and that. And I'm thinking, your baby is doing so well. Your baby Henry, he's beautiful, he's gorgeous. And I'm so upset because I was supposed to be in Ireland when I didn't know she was going to have a baby. But I was moving home to Ireland in September 2021 and she had her baby in December 2021 and I would have been home and I probably would have moved out of my house with Nathan and moved in with her, except I wouldn't have because her husband's a Munster rugby supporter. Husband, boyfriend, baby daddy, whatever he's called. Anyhow, so she was saying how life was and how she's always feeding and I'm thinking, you don't know nothing yet. Wait till you hit 16 weeks and then all you do is feed.
Yes.
You feed milk at 7 a.m, solids at 8 a.m, milk at 11 a.m, solids at 12. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeding, you're making food. You're making solids.
Yeah.
Being a mum is a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job because you don't even get a lunch hour.
No. Well, unless you're on your routines and then, the baby goes to sleep for a little.
But then you're trying to do your washing and you're putting
catching up on life.
And then if you've got kids at school, anyhow, it's just crazy. So Starting solids. Well, a few things about starting solids. So in my first edition of the Save Our Sleep book, so when the Save Our Sleep book very first came out in 2005, I think it was, I had starting solids between 4 and 6 months, and I had more of information about starting solids at 6 months. Did you know that, Kylie?
No.
For the first 20,000 copies of the book, and then I changed it.
Yeah.
Because when I came to Australia, everyone was all about starting solids at 6 months.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what you had to do, and that's what you should tell people. So we invented the dream feed. So I would now like to write a new version of the book, and I would have different routines for the breastfeeding babies, which are in the support group, where instead of the 2 to 4 week routine and the 4 to 6, the problem is that the book can't have routine after routine. It would have been too big. So we kind of made it smaller for the actual published book. But when you go to the support group, you will find other different routines. So there's a routine for 2 to 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. I would also like to change it going forward to sort of saying, not, you introduce the dream feed when you introduced it at 6 weeks. That's great. I introduced the dream feed at 6 weeks. But a lot of people say they find that if they do a dream feed, their baby wakes at the same time, even if they don't do a dream feed. So if they do a dream feed, their baby wakes at the same time. If they don't, okay, let me give a better example. If they do the dream feed at 10:30, so a dream feed is where you lift your sleeping baby up at 10:30 at night and you feed them while they sleep at about 8 weeks. At 6 weeks, you often have to fully wake them for that feed. That should then mean that they get to 3 or 4 o'clock and then they go to 7 o'clock if their bedding is correct. Some people say that if they do the dream feed at that time of night, their baby wakes at 1. And if they don't do the dream feed, their baby wakes at 1. Some babies seem to just need to wake more often at night. Okay? If you're one of those people, then cut the dream feed out and reintroduce the dream feed at 14 weeks.
Okay.
Right? To help you get 12 or 14 weeks, because you need it when your baby needs the extra nourishment, but you can't start solids yet because your baby's too young.
And we do see that. We do see them starting to wake a bit more around that.
age. And the reason why I was talking originally at the beginning of this podcast was about starting solids at 6 months was because when you used to start solids at 6 months, you had to have the dream feed because you needed the dream feed to get the baby through to 7 o'clock in the morning because you weren't starting solids till 6 months. Well, I've backtracked because I have found a few things. After 20,000 copies of the book, I was getting so many phone calls, because in those days I did phone calls, from people whose babies were night waking, catnapping during the day. It doesn't work. 2 things. Babies need iron from 16 weeks, between 16 and 18 weeks. Otherwise, they start waking more at night. They need the food. They drop their milk. Babies reduce the amount of milk they take. If you start your babies on solids between 16 weeks or 18 weeks, or if you don't start your babies on solids between 16 and 18 weeks, they drop their milk intake at around the 18-20 week mark, regardless. It doesn't matter if you have or haven't started solids. They drop their milk intake. I don't know if you've noticed that. Well, you would have.
And it coincides kind of with like the so-called, the 4 months regression
that everybody talks about. But if you've got a Save Our Sleep baby, a real Save Our Sleep bedding, doing the solids, doing the sleep and settling, no dummy, correct bedding. There is no 4 month sleep regression. Right. So the second thing I found is allergies. Allergies. I totally believe, this is my belief, this is not medical, okay? The reason why there's so many kids in Australia with allergies is because so many people delay solids till 6 months. Now, I read an article and it's on my desk. I cut it out of a newspaper I came here in 2002, so it would have been back in 2002. I read an article in a UK newspaper, and I'm sure her name was Amanda Harris. She talked about solids and allergies. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm playing about with a spoon. If you're not watching on YouTube, you won't see that I'm playing about with a spoon. But she said that were the allergies from cleanliness? Okay. So the question was, did a mother who started her baby on solids at 16 weeks or around 4 months, around 16 weeks? Now, when I say starting solids. I'm saying you start solids at 16 weeks or 18 weeks at latest. I call that 4 months, but we're weeks, 16 weeks, and 5.5 kg. I will go into that in more detail in a bit, but for now we're talking about allergies. So, does the mother start feeding her baby from a spoon? I'm feeding Kylie, for anyone who's listening, from a spoon, at 16 weeks. Does the spoon at 18 weeks fall on the floor? At 18 weeks, when the spoon falls on the floor, mum picks it up, puts it away, and gets a clean one out of the sterilizer. And she uses a sterile spoon to continue feeding her little baby, right? Because she's only just started solids and she's paranoid about dirt, paranoid about what her baby's eating and drinking, yeah? So,
I'm
you
terrible.
never heard me talking about this before.
No, but I'm terrible.
No, that's different. You've got older kids. I'm talking about your first baby. So
Yeah,
Kylie's going to say, I'm different. No, you're what I'm talking about.
No, your first baby.
Minute, okay? So, you've got your baby. You've started them on solids.
Yep.
You've dropped the spoon on the floor. Okay, I'm going to paint the picture. I'm now feeding my 17-week-old baby solids. It's week 2 of 18-week-old baby, week 2 of solids.
Yeah.
I've dropped the spoon on the floor. Oh no, the spoon's dirty. I've taken the spoon, put it in the kitchen sink. I've gone to the sterilizer. I've got a clean spoon. I've fed the baby some more solids, clean spoon, yeah? I am convinced. I'm worried about germs, clean spoon, yeah? Roll forward to 6 months, yeah? At 6 months, you're feeding the baby with the spoon. The spoon drops on the floor. The dog licks the spoon that's dropped on the floor. Pick the spoon up and continue feeding the baby. Because you just do it. You're on autopilot by 6 months. You're now feeding your 6-month-old baby germs. Because you have dropped the spoon on the floor. The dog didn't really lick it. You've dropped the spoon on the floor. You've picked the spoon up, given it a bit of a wipe, and you're feeding your baby. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah. You are out at a cafe, you put the spoon down the table, it's picked up some germs, you pick up the spoon, you're feeding your baby, yeah? 6 months, yeah? By 6 months, as Kylie said, you pick up the spoon, you lick it, you do whatever. Now, a lot of people say that's actually really bad. And hopefully Melissa, who knows all about teeth, comes and gives me a tip on this. This is another question for Melissa, who's very good at coming and giving me tips, because I talked about breastfeeding and Coke, and Melissa very kindly explained to me all about how breast milk is different in the mouth to Coke. However, you still shouldn't be feeding your baby. If you're constantly snacking, it affects their teeth. I'm not a dentist, I won't go into it. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, yeah, you now look at this scenario.
1,300 hours.
That's what happened in our last podcast. It told us the time. It's like we're always recording at the same time. Anyway, 1,300 hours. Thank you, Lily. It sounds like Lily, my goddaughter, speaks with a voice.
Little robot voice.
Yes, she has a pause, and I always think it's Lily talking to me. Thank you, Lily. It's 1,300 hours. Now, roll forward to, we are now at 6 months and we're going to start our baby on solids. This is what Amanda Harris was talking about, yeah? So you have this big, bubbly 6-month-old baby. You're feeding it solids. You put a spoon in its mouth, etc. Now, at 6.5 months, you've been feeding solids for 2 weeks and you drop the spoon on the floor. What do? You pick the spoon up. You put it in the sink. You go to the sterilizer. You get a spoon out of the sterilizer. You feed your 6.5-month-old baby with a sterile spoon. Now, it's not till your 6-month-old baby is 8 months when you become that perfect lazy parent and the spoon drops on the floor and you pick it up. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And the dog licks it and whatever else, or the toddler comes along and picks it up and gives it a bit of a dirt from the mud that it's been playing with in the back garden. You're now exposing your 8-month-old to germs. So is the allergies to do with what late starting solids? Is it nothing to do with the actual food? Yes, some of it's to do with the food, don't get me wrong. But could some of it be to do with how hygienic we are? So if you start solids at 16 weeks, your baby gets exposed to germs round about 5 or 6 months. If you start solids at 6 months, your baby gets exposed to those germs at 7 or 8 months. Massive difference, okay? I can't help but wonder, is that got a connection to allergies? What do you reckon?
It's a good point because, if you think about from when our parents and stuff, they didn't, my mum talks about it.
Didn't have a sterilizer?
No. You were lucky if they did it for the first week or something, they put it in the pot and
they didn't have a dishwasher.
And they were just like, stuff that is too hard and we'll just go and do it. So it is really interesting. It's a good theory. It'd be interesting to see with the last 2 years with COVID.
They didn't have these amazing save or sleep frustration-free spoons. So when you first start solids, I get you to use my soft tip spoons, which are hard tipped. So I've got a spoon when you very first start solids. They're magic. So when you start solids with them, You go to feed the baby, and so think about this. When you're feeding the baby, you go to put the spoon in the mouth, and sometimes you have to kind of like edge the mouth open a little bit.
Yeah.
And if the tip's soft, you can't get in the mouth because it bends, right? So you're feeding the baby. For anyone on YouTube, watch this. So you're feeding the baby, you've got to like move the spoon. I'll talk as well to help you if you're listening. Move the spoon slightly right and left. In it goes. You kind of wipe it and bring it out. Wipe it in the mouth. Like let them, and keep it in the mouth long enough for them to suck the food off it. A lot of people just put it in and pull it out. And babies don't like that because they're used to sucking the breast. They're used to sucking the bottle. So when you're starting solids, you put the spoon in and you let them suck off it. Okay. And then you take the spoon out. Okay. Here's a tip. When you take the spoon out, don't keep wiping it across your baby's lips. Because if you put the spoon in, let them have a bit of a suck, take it out, wipe, put the spoon in, let them have a bit of a suck, take it out, wipe. You're teaching them that this horrible wipe feeling. Feel that, Kylie? Boom. Feel that. What does that feel like?
It's annoying.
Right? Wiping the spoon across Kylie's mouth. You're teaching them that an association of yuck. Like you're pushing the food across their face. Sorry, I'm getting hyper because I don't like it.
It's interesting though, because
from a baby's point of view, now it's okay to do it every 8 or 9 spoonfuls where you take the spoon and you kind of wipe the food off their mouth with the spoon and you put it back in their mouth. That's okay. A lot of us do that, but not every single time.
I have actually seen toddlers do it, like feed themselves and then try and wipe.
Because they think they're supposed to, and it can actually cause children to not like food because you're putting it in, wipe, don't like it. Try doing it yourself. Yucky. Every so often you say to your toddler, Frederick, Mummy's just going to wipe some of this food off your face. And then you can either just dump it back in the bowl or some people will. I've seen one woman who has a clean bowl like a Chinese restaurant where you've got the bowl for dipping, or a rib restaurant, not Chinese restaurant, where she dips the spoon in the water, hot water, like hot-ish water, and then use it again. Some people throw the food back in the bowl. Some people just shove the food into the child's mouth, whichever you decide to do. But talk to them. I'm going to wipe your face. So feed. I'm going to wipe your face, Frederick. Feed. Mummy's just going to wipe your face. Don't do it every time. Talk to them. Tell them it's coming. Then they can say no or and you can tell that they don't like it because they can communicate with you. Okay? So that's interesting. So I need to get back on. So spoons. So soft. So the hard tip spoon to start off with. Now we used to have a hard tip spoon, and then we had a soft tip spoon, and then we had the frustration-free curved spoons. Now I've got this magic spoon that starts off like a hard tip, but then the more you use it and the more you put it through the sterilizer and the more you put it through the dishwasher, it gets softer and softer and softer. Then the reason why you want a soft tip spoon when you've been feeding your child solids for about 4 weeks is they open the mouth, in goes the food, open the mouth, in goes the food, open the mouth, boom, they slam their mouth shut, they don't want any more food. And the hard tip food can what's that called under the tongue? It just can, it can hurt them, okay? Because you've shoved the spoon hard to, but the spoon goes soft. So I've got these hard to soft tip spoons, which are great for starting solids. And then you've got these frustration-free spoons. And when you very first start solids, make it really easy. Like I always did this. I always fed my children with Avon bottles. Okay? I always breastfed my children. Sorry, that's not the right thing. I fed Dara bottles. I breastfed Kieran and Killian, but I always had bottles in the house. I always did 1 bottle a day. And I always used Avon bottles for more. And they have a nice big lid, which is flat and it can stand. And I always use that for the solids. So that's what it's about the same size as a Weenmeister, you know. I always made my solids up in the lid of the bottle. You don't need all these swanky bowls and stuff. Not when you very first start solids.
No.
You need something the size of an egg cup. Like, that's what I made my solids in. So I used to take the solids out to a restaurant with me sometimes. You know, I'd have the pureed carrot or whatever in a little in a hot thermos. I'd like take some, pop it into the lid of the bottle, put your rice cereal in, put your milk in, mix it all together. Someone asked recently, do you mix it all together? Yes, you do. And when you're cooking solids, I throw it all in a pot, simmer it and puree it. Like, I don't separate everything. Yes, at first. You have to separate it to learn if they're allergic to stuff. So you do one food for 3 days, another food. But then, when you know that they can have chicken and carrot and sweet and pumpkin, you throw it all in a pot, simmer it, puree it. It's in the feeding book. Big soups, it's not that hard. So, back to solids. So, we say to start solids when your baby is 16 to
weeks.
18 weeks.
Okay.
Closer to 16 weeks,
Mhm.
yep. Your baby has to be roughly 5.5 kg. I've
Okay.
never found a baby smaller than 5.5 kg to need solids. Okay. If your baby is 18 weeks and not yet 5.5 kg, start the solids. Okay, you don't wait.
Yep.
And if your baby is premature, you start the solids at different times. So depending on how many weeks premature they are, is to when you start solids, and that is explained in both the feeding book and the Save Our Sleep book.
What if the preemie is the 5.5 kilos but isn't the corrected age?
So you're saying, what if you had a premature baby who is, well, it would, so you're saying a premature baby who's 5.5 kg. So let's have a look at the ages.
Yeah.
Let's see exactly what we're talking about. So we are saying if your baby is 4 to 5 weeks early, you start solids at 17 weeks.
Yep.
So you're saying, what if they were 5 weeks early, 5.5 kg at 16 weeks?
Yeah.
I personally would wait till the 17 weeks to start solids.
Yep. Just to give it
but
that
maybe
extra.
ask your health professional. But then let's go further. So if they were 8 weeks premature, you would start solids at 19 weeks. And you're saying, but what if they were 8 weeks premature and they were 5.5 kg at 18 weeks? You got me. I don't know the answer.
Personal preference.
Or talk to your, most babies who would be 8 weeks premature would have a paediatrician.
Yeah.
And you could ask the paediatrician whether you should start solids at the 19 weeks or whether you should start them when they're 5.5 kg. But the chance of an 8-week-old baby being 5.5 kg,
ridiculous. Yeah.
it probably haven't come across. I've had premature babies. They would never have been that size.
Yeah.
Haven't come across it before. But here's one. What if you've got twins and one of them needs solids and is the right size and weight and the other one isn't? What do you do? Well, this is what you do, okay? You feed the baby who needs the solids the rice cereal with their infant milk. So either, when I say infant milk, I mean formula or breast milk. And the rice cereal and the carrot or apple. You only do apple, pear, carrot and rice cereal. You do not move to other foods.
Okay.
And then when the second baby or third baby or whatever baby, so if you've got twins or triplets, you don't move to the next foods until the whole baby family, so whether it's a second baby or a second and a third baby, catch up. We've got triplets coming soon in our books. There was one of the mums who was on one of the shows was having triplets.
Oh, wow.
On like Current Affair or Project. It was on my Instagram page, so it'd be interesting. I must check in and see how she's going. It will be interesting to see how far she gets, and hopefully she joins the support group. And yes, so right, so that's, so starting solids is at 16 weeks, and then you do, oh look, I say to start a new food every 3 days, but then I hear people, and my friend Claire at home's doing it, where they then doing like, so then they're like going, so they're taking the book and they're doing apple for 3 days, carrots for 3 days, pears for 3 days, potato for 3 days. But really, when you get to 6 months and you're doing apricots and avocado, really by then you're going to know if your kid's going to have allergies. You don't have to do 3 days, but you have to know what you're feeding them. So you could do apricots today, and you could do avocado tomorrow, and you could do cauliflower the next day, which actually gives a lot of children wind.
Yeah.
You have to know, in case they have an allergic reaction, you have to know, or an intolerance, you have to know what but you don't have to wait the 3 days, okay? But intolerances and allergies are different, and they're very different. So allergies, and this is where it comes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. So the reason why I'm asking if allergies is to do with the immunity and the germs and stuff is because allergies is where it's an immune reaction, and you get the rash and so on, and they can be anaphylactic, they can swell up, it can be life-threatening. Intolerances are different. That's where you get like a sore tummy, or you become unsettled, or you can get the runs or poos. Something which fascinates me with starting solids. So many people say that their child's constipated.
Yes.
No, they're not. They've changed diet. If you had all liquid, so if you for 6 months or 8 months, I'm not saying 6 months to do with starting solids at 6 months, I'm just trying to give an example of an adult. You'd have to be about 6 months or a year of all all liquid food.
Mhm.
So you only drank liquid. You only had liquid. You only had you only had milk, not even soup, because that's got other stuff in it. Just milk. If you had milk and water for 6 months continuously, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then all of a sudden we added some rice cereal and some other, your poo's going to change.
Yeah.
Is it constipation or is it your poo's changed because you've started solids? And all of these people say, "Oh, I'm cutting out the rice cereal and I'm doing this." Well, if you've cut it out and it works, but I worry that cutting out the rice cereal is going to make the baby even more unsettled.
Okay.
Because they need the iron, which is talked about in one of our last podcasts. If you go to the Save Our Sleep support group and you go to the podcast map, it will tell you which one we talk about the iron. So Zoe and I talk about the iron in great detail. The amount of iron a baby needs, I think, is more than it was with an adult. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So they need the iron. So you need the rice cereal. So I wouldn't be quick at chopping out the rice cereal. I would be considering whether they're really constipated or whether their diet's just changed and that's why their poo has changed. Yeah. Is it really constipation? Constipation is when a baby is in a lot of pain when they're pooing and they do little rabbit poos.
Yeah,
you know? So that's one thing which is interesting. So I've got some notes to talk about when we're talking about solids. Winding. Mm-hmm. Even before you start solids, people do not wind their babies enough. I've realised, because I've reopened my baby hotel, where people with little babies can come and stay with me for a few days, getting their baby on the routine, or when mum's just really not coping and doesn't know how to bath her baby, doesn't know how to feed her baby, is a bit scared. Like you said, they've brought this alien home from hospital and they're leaving hospital sooner than what they used to in the olden days, and they're coming and staying in the baby hotel. And I've realised I wind the babies and these mums don't. And it's not their fault. They just didn't realise. So winding is so important. And when you first start solids, winding is really important.
Yeah.
So winding is really...
I never have thought that for solids, but I actually found a mum had to burp during the solids, halfway through. They had to give him a burp. I would never have thought that.
Because, of course, when they're swallowing, they can swallow air.
Yeah. So it's good. It's a good tip because no one knows. I wonder if that's why my son used to eat so much that he'd throw up. And I wonder if maybe he had a bit of that wind.
Maybe needed air. So if you find that your baby's positing or throwing up a bit with solids, do some winding. So we said don't wipe. That's one of my things. Allergies and intolerances are very different. Now, if there's anyone out there who is an allergy intolerance expert who would like to come on one of the shows and explain it to us, we'd love to have you on. Allergies and tolerances, very different. Winding is important. Now, people ask this all the time. We get asked this all the time in the support groups, right? So if you start solids at 16 weeks, when I then say to start meat at 6 months or 5 months, is it 20 weeks or 24 weeks? No. We do 16 weeks until 4 months. From 4 months, we talk in calendar months. So when we say 5 months, it's 5 calendar months. Yes, if your baby was born on the 1st of February, it would be a different amount of weeks to if a baby was born on the 1st of March, because February's got less weeks, less days. But we go with calendar months. It's averages. It's 6 months is 6 calendar months. So if they were born on the 1st of January, you would start solids, or you start 6 month solids on the 1st of June. Yes, that's 6 months, yes. If they were born on the 1st of June, you'd start on the 1st of December, even though the weeks would be different. It's an average, okay? When we say 5 months, so after 16 weeks, after 4 months, when we talk about the ages, we talk in months, not weeks. Okay? So that's something we get asked all the time. And if you go to the support group and you go up the top, you can click on a thing called topics, and in the topics you can find one day someone asked the same question like 8 times. So it was all, I kept saying in the topics, look at the topics. And then I felt really bad because when I've gone back months later, they can't see that someone's asked the same question and you had to keep searching for it. So, and the other thing is, a doctor corrected me, Dr. Golly corrected me and said that I call it in my book hiccups, but it's actually hiccoughs.
Oh.
I didn't know that. Does anyone know if that's true or wrong?
I always thought it was hiccups.
And he says that hiccoughs can be a sign of wind. So that's interesting too. So I always thought it was hiccups, but apparently it's hiccoughs. So do I need to go and edit my book? Can everybody please tell us? Can you get on the Instagram page under the this podcast cover, the series 2,
Episode
episode
three.
3. What are we calling it? Weaning.
Sure.
Yeah. Series 2,
Weaning.
episode 3, Weaning. Can you please say if you think it's hiccups or hiccoughs? And if I should edit my book to say hiccoughs. Right. It is time to move on to our reader's question.
Sure.
What have we got for this week? So to do a listener's question, not a reader's question. It is our listener's question. Is from who?
From Jemma Sage Bell. And she writes, I know every baby is different, but it would be great to have some guidelines for expectations for overnight feeding. My second is 11 weeks old, but every night wakes at different times for feeds. Generally once per night, but occasionally twice a night. He wakes any time from 2 to 5 a.m. after the dream feed. It's the only part of the routine that is demand driven, but any insights would be amazing. And also, do you keep them swaddled for this feed?
So, first of all, you get a $20 gift voucher.
Fantastic.
So how you get that is you go to the Instagram page and you find this cover of this podcast and you write underneath it, I'm such and such, may I have my voucher?
Yep.
Okay. And then that's how you get it. Okay. So people on Instagram realise that you are a real person. Secondly, how you ask your question is you have to be in the support group and put your question, lister's question forward. So, great question, great topic. So, first of all, I have found that dads should be involved in these night feeds more than or as we said in one of our other podcasts, when I say dads, I mean the other partner.
Yeah.
The non-breastfeeding partner or the non-bottle feeding partner. I recently have started to realise that something that worked really well for Nathan and I was when we were feeding babies during the night, I would go to bed early at actually Nathan would go to bed early, but in the ideal world, the mum would go to bed early.
Yeah.
So you would go to bed after the dream feed.
Mm-hmm.
So at sort of 9:30, 10:30 at night, you go to sleep. And that mum gets to sleep. That partner does, so mum goes to bed earlier at like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Dad does the dream feed.
Yeah.
So mum goes to bed at 8, dad does the dream feed. So mum sleeps from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 2 o'clock, or 3 or 4. Mum gets that good chunk of sleep. Now, in the ideal world, maybe mum should go sleep in another room and dad should sleep in the room with the baby for that section of the night.
Okay.
Then, after that, mum gets up and does that feed, and then dad has that big, long stretch of sleep. So dad goes to sleep after the dream feed and can sleep till 6 or 7 in the morning. So both parents are getting
that big sleep.
Good sleep. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Now, another tip is if you have a baby who is older, like this mum with an 11-week-old, does the baby really need a feed in the night? So I would be checking the bedding.
Yep.
Bedding. Often people forget to introduce the sleeping bag. You introduce the sleeping bag be at 8 weeks or before 8 weeks.
Okay.
Have you introduced the sleeping bag? Have you tried extra bedding? It might be that you're not using the Save Our Sleep bedding. If all those boxes are ticked and baby wakes up and demands a feed, I would try and have baby on dad's side of the bed. If depending on
how the room sets up,
how you're set up and which way you're sleeping and who's getting that good section of sleep, or if it's your turn to be with the baby. When the baby first wakes up, snoo the crib, as we said before, like give it that little sort of bit of a rock or a shake. If you've got the mini crib next to bed, it's really easy. You just kind of go and give it a bit of a, and baby might settle back. Baby might not need a feed. You might be jumping and thinking that baby needs a feed. Baby needs a feed if they have cried continuously for 5 minutes in a row at that age at night. If they wake up and go, and you give them a bit of a shook or a snoo, as we're going to call it, where you move the cot a little bit and they go back to sleep, they don't need a feed. But if you have done the dream feed and then you've done another, and then you're doing this feed, you're going to be exhausted. You're just going to get up and feed them because it's a quicker way to get them back to bed. No, you need the other partner to help you. It's not all one partner. You both had children. You both had the hanky-panky. You both decided to go in for this in some cases. In other cases, you're a single mum and you're all by yourself. And you've decided that you want to have a child and you're a fantastic parent and you have this child. And in that case, maybe you need to, as a mum, try and
Yeah.
resettle
Well,
the baby a little
with
bit.
my third, I was a single mum, and I found, like you said, like I had to give that little bit of time to make sure that the cry was genuine. Because by the time I got up, I'd go and make the bottle because I formula fed, and then by the time I'd come back to pick her up, she'd be asleep again. So then I started to learn to give her that little period and waiting for not just a little like I waited for a couple good cries. And then I was like, okay, she actually is awake. She's not just stirring between a cycle.
And this is like, so, I should have interrupted you because I forget what I'm going to say. But, second and third children, like we find with first children, people give them a chance to resettle in the night. But second and third children, mums are so scared that they're going to wake the older child up that they don't give them that opportunity to resettle in the night.
But it's actually
they
amazing.
jump to them quicker.
It's amazing how much we don't give the toddlers credit for sleeping through it. I found with my third, because my first and second could come out of bed, they would come and they would say, oh, the baby's crying. And I was already in there. I'm like, yes, I know. Thank you so much for telling me, And I would put the baby down, or I'd stop bottle feeding, and then I'd go and put them back to bed, say goodnight, and just say, look, the baby's okay. It's just hungry. Mummy's coming to feed the baby. Yeah. And they'd be okay with it.
Or some baby will sleep through it.
Or,
some toddlers will sleep
that
through
was
it.
only like, for the first couple of nights when we got home, because it's a new experience.
So we're going to do a Wednesday topic. So our next Wednesday topic, I would like to talk in more detail about this night settling.
Sure.
So we'll do that. But to continue on for this for a minute, so what do you do? So if you have an 11-week-old, I'd give them the opportunity to settle at night.
Yeah.
If they're waking at different times, like this mum says that her baby is waking at different times during the night, then that baby is probably waking hungry. Give them a few minutes to settle. Decide only feed them if they're going to cry continuously for 5 minutes. They might cry continuously for 5 minutes, sleep for 20 minutes, cry for 5 minutes, sleep. So do this at a weekend where there's another, or at a time of the week, or when you've got a friend or a partner or someone else who can help you during the day so that you can get a bit more naps during the day. Not that anyone gets any naps, but if you're going to actually try and get this baby to sleep through the night, make it so that you can get more sleep during the day. You've got nothing on. You've got a blank slate. One mum recently said that she took 2 weeks off work to actually get these nights sorted. And that's what you need to do, right? So then you're going to know that you're not going to have a good night's sleep because you're going to try and get your baby to settle a bit more during the night. So they're going to cry for 5 minutes continuously, as in a yell, a bit of a... Even if it sounds like it's emotional, they're going to cry a little bit. You're going to give them that few minutes.
They're not used to it.
You're going to give them a few minutes. If they then stop for 10, 15 minutes and they're quiet, that's good. Then they'll cry again for a few minutes, only if it's a continuous wah, 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 with no change in the tone for 5 minutes. Are you going to feed them? Right now, yes, you feel like you've wasted an hour and a half because they've cried on, off, on, off, on, off. But the next night, it doesn't happen. It really quickly disappears. Okay. But so my thing was, what I was saying was, if the time the baby's waking every night changes, it's a genuine, normally hunger, you can try this. If it's exactly the same time every night, the chances are the room's not warm enough, or it's bedding, or they're still in a bassinet. Like, do you remember Kirsty Crosser? Kirsty came and stayed with me when I died. She said, what's he doing in this bassinet? And she said, oh, you need to put him in the cot. And the first night we put him in a big cot, he slept through. Because the bassinets aren't comfortable.
No.
The mini cribs are, but bassinets are not comfortable. I have the mini cribs on my website. I would love to be able to make my own, which would be more affordable. It's a really good investment because imagine sleeping, like when you go and stay in a hotel, imagine sleeping in a horrible bed. Like, if your baby's got to sleep in something for the first 4 or 5 months, make it good.
Yeah.
You cannot put a price on sleep.
No.
So on Wednesday, I would like the topic this week on Wednesday to be, what if you've got like a 6-7 month old? That's a whole other topic. Who is still waking at night for night feeds. And that's going to be our Wednesday topic. So it's going to be still this. What's this mum called? Sorry, I've forgotten her name. Jemma. It's going to be still Gemma's question, but it's going to be extended to talk about 6 months old. So we will catch you all on Wednesday for more crack.
Yay.
See you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye. You have been listening to the Save Our Sleep podcast, brought to you by the International Baby Whisperer Proprietary Limited. you will find more information about the Save Our Sleep philosophy, products, support, and how to watch the mini clips that accompany this podcast at saveoursleep.com. You may find the Save Our Sleep social media accounts by searching Tizzie Hall on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for all my how-to videos and to watch the podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it and share it with your friends. I would like to thank Kylie Szabo for co-hosting, Fundamental Studios Geelong for their amazing recording studio, Nick Dale at Primer Films for this production, and most of all, you, the listeners. Without you, there would be no reason for this podcast. Please enjoy, stay safe, and Kylie and I will look forward to chatting with you again soon.